Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the June 18, 2026 meeting of the Somerville Planning Board. I'm Mike Capuano. I'm the chairman of the planning board. With me tonight is our vice chair, Amelia Aboff, our clerk, Jahan Habib, our members, Lynn Richards, Michael McNeely, Coralie Cooper, and Luke Schuster. We have a quorum. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. A video recording of the proceedings will be available on the city's meetings and events page or by emailing planningboard@somervillema.gov. This meeting is being recorded. We have a number of items on our agenda tonight. I will just go down the quick list and then we will actually get to the processional. We will have meeting minutes. We have 222 Broadway, which has previously been continued to July 16, 2026, yet it remains on our agenda. We have 120 Middlesex Avenue, who has requested a continuance. The chair moves to continue that agenda item to July 16, 2026, seconded by Amelia. Alvaro, can we please have a roll call?
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael McNeely,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Agenda item is continued to the 16th. We will also take up 32 Webster Avenue, which has been opened, heard, and it will be coming before us this evening with some additional information. We will also have 1 McGrath Highway. I believe this has already been read into the record. Is that right, John? Okay.
Yes,
We
yes, it is.
we will, time permitting, take up 1 McGrath Highway. We will also at 6:30 adjourn from this meeting of the planning board to commence a joint hearing with the land use committee on a separate link. So anybody here who wants to join that will have to go to a separate link. This link will remain active during that meeting. And then when that meeting adjourns for the business that we have with the land use committee, we will reconvene on this link. And we also have, and this is what I'm going to take up right after we do meeting minutes, is discussion with our assistant solicitor about a court order that has been remanded to us for the purpose of our deliberation and a vote on that. So the very first thing that I would like to do then is to take the May 21st, 2026 draft meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions, revisions to those draft meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none, the chair moves to adopt those draft meeting minutes as the final meeting minutes of the planning board, seconded by Amelia. Alvaro, can we please have a roll call?
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael McNeely,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
We have meeting minutes. The next up is I would like discretion of the chair. I am taking items out of order, and I would like to invite Attorney David Shapiro to join the planning board to talk to us about our obligations pursuant to a court-ordered remand of a particular vote.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully the board has a copy of the order from the court. And essentially, this is what we talked about in executive session at the last meeting. But there was a question that the court has for the board to answer. You have in front of you both of the submissions from both parties. And my suggestion would be, as a practical matter, in your discretion, Chair, to allow each of the parties a chance to address the board with the highlights and of their submissions. You can decide how much time you think would be appropriate. I would suggest it could be relatively short, only because you already have the documents in front of you. And then the board can deliberate and hopefully make a decision and answer the question that the court has asked. And the question the court has asked is, does Stella Moon's project violate Somerville zoning ordinance section 7.4.7.d 6.9 so that the project would require an additional waiver to be able to proceed lawfully. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
David, I do have a question for you. I think I recall seeing in that remand order that there was a deadline for the parties to report back to the court on the planning board's vote. Could you remind us of what that deadline is, and if it's something that's reasonably close, if that's something that obligates our vote tonight?
We have to report back to the court. It says no later than July 30th, but hopefully sooner.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't think there's any obligation to act tonight, but if the board is prepared to act tonight, that's certainly within the board's discretion.
For sure. I appreciate that, and taking your advice, it's something that I also wanted to do. The board has been provided the remand order. It's also been provided the written submissions and briefings by the parties. So I think the board has had the opportunity to review all of that material. It's my desire to have the parties have a brief presentation of their highlights before the board. And I'd also like the opportunity to kind of ask some questions of you and the parties, as we might need to do in order for the board to feel comfortable either making a vote tonight or pushing it off to our next meeting, which is, I think, July 18th. So either way, it's prior to the court's deadline of the end of July.
Mhm.
So thank you, David. David, I'll just ask you, while this is going on, if you wouldn't mind just staying with us.
Oh yes, I will be here for the
I
entire.
want to take us first, so we didn't have to keep you longer than necessary.
Yeah, I'm going to be here for this entire matter. Yes.
Appreciate that. What I would ask then is for counsel for the parties to identify themselves for the purpose of being recognized.
I can tell you who they are.
Yeah,
Mike.
I see two hands. I see Michael
good.
Murray and I see Jeffrey Ugino.
Yes.
And what I would ask is probably counsel for the for the abutter to go first, as I think it was their initiation of this particular matter to make a presentation. So if you wouldn't mind just identifying yourself for the planning board, and what I would like to do is offer each person 3 minutes to make an oral presentation, but then we might and probably will call you back just for a couple of questions back and forth. It's not necessarily just going to be your 3 minutes and then we go. I'd like to hear both sides and then ask you both.
Sure. Mr. Chair, did you say it was the plaintiff you want to hear from first, the abutter?
Yes, the abutter,
Okay,
the abutter first, please.
Okay. Good evening to the chair, evening to the board. My name is Jeff Ugino. We represent the plaintiff in this litigation. It's the Plaintiff LLC that owns 29 Mystic Avenue, which is right next door to the proposed development. The scope of the remand from the court is very narrow. It asks you to take a look at a single provision within the ASMD district, that is 7.4.7.D.9 Roman numeral, and specifically whether the open space referred to in this particular section is required to be accessible to the public. I'm guessing you may have looked at the language, but if not, the language says development surrounding open space should result in a net benefit to the space in terms of activation and public access. Although the zoning ordinance for the city at large does not necessarily say that open space must be accessible to the public. Again, we're looking at this very small context here within the ASMD, and hopefully you have read my submissions to the board. But I think it's important, given the new in the new master plan, the 2025 Assembly Square master plan. I think when you read that, it's almost impossible to consider that the 25% open space for the requirement for the district includes an open space which is purported to be here, which is a private roof deck on the sixth floor, that it's inaccessible to the public. I'm sure the board is well more familiar with the neighborhood plan than I am. It just adopted in 2025. Throughout it, it expresses that there's a privacy problem right now in terms of open space in the district, where spaces feel private and uninviting. This rooftop deck would just continue that. In terms of physical requirements, there's provisions in the master plan that open spaces must be open along at least one street and feature multiple entrances. And there's the connected civic loop that the plan envisions, where a connected loop of large civic spaces. It targets 30% as the number of the amount of land dedicated to civic spaces. I think you have to read this 25% open space requirement in this district as inclusive of that area. You can't read it any other way. I just think that this, although it says it's a design guideline, I think that you have to reference the master plan, its emphasis on open space, and you have to conclude that at least here, that this section envisions this open space as being a publicly accessible benefit, and it's not. So happy to answer any questions that the board has regarding our view on this. Again, my client owns multiple properties in the neighborhood, Roman Ironworks. It's been around for decades on Mystic Avenue, and it has an interest in seeing that the master plan is adhered to, quite frankly. And again, happy to answer any questions from the board.
Attorney Eugenio, we're gonna kind of reserve our questions until we've got a presentation from both sides. So I appreciate
Sure, absolutely.
your indulgence. Attorney Murray, love to hear from you as well.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Murray. I'm a land use and permitting attorney with Nixon Peabody in Boston, and I represent Stella Moon in this matter. Just to take a quick step back through a memorandum dated February 28th, 2025, the OSPCD staff recommended, if it was a thorough memorandum, by the way, it recommended that this board approve the project by issuing 4 special permit waivers and site plan approval. The OSPCD staff was well aware that Stella Moon would satisfy the zoning ordinance's open space requirement through rooftop open space that would not be publicly available, yet it did not identify any need to obtain a waiver relating to this issue. After holding a hearing and considering all the evidence, this board unanimously voted to issue the special permit waivers and site plan approval that the OSPCD staff had identified and that Stella Moon had requested. So now the owner of 29 Mystic Avenue filed suit in court, and they're basically claiming that both the OSPCD staff and this board got it wrong. Now, with all due respect, they're wrong about that. Now, Table 7.4.7 of the zoning ordinance identifies the open space requirement that applies to Stella Moon's project, and it states that the project must provide 25% open space. The term open space is as used in Table 7.4.7 is defined very broadly in Section 2-1 of the zoning ordinance to mean, and I quote, a ground level or upper story outdoor landscaped area, including but not limited to natural woodlands, yards, forecourts, courtyards, green roofs, and civic spaces, end quote. Importantly, this definition imposes no requirement that open space be publicly available. Here, Stella Moon is providing open space through a green roof, which is specifically allowed by this definition. In fact, Stella Moon is providing much more open space than is required. Therefore, no additional special permit waiver was needed. The guideline that 29 Mystic is relying on is just that. It's a guideline. It uses the word should. Section 1.1.9 of the zoning ordinance spells out the important difference between standards that use the word must and therefore are mandatory. These words are directly from the zoning ordinance itself, and guidelines which use the word should and are permissive. In short, a special permit waiver cannot reasonably be required for a building design guideline that uses the term should. Now, in the most recent letter to the board, the abutter has relied on the ASMD plan and the use of civic space. Civic space is specifically defined it's public space. It's required of master plan projects. This is not a master plan project. It's not even close to being large enough to be a master plan project. So there's no civic space requirement whatsoever. There's no open space that can be provided on that. It's a small piece of land. There's no open space that can be provided other than by a rooftop. I'm at my limit and I don't want to waste your time. So I rely on the other arguments that are presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Murray. So I will have some questions, but what I'd like to do is open it up to questions by my colleagues first. If anybody has anything they would like to raise before I do, please do your Simpsons hand and we'll call it. Okay. Okay, so I guess it's me. That's fine then. So Attorney Eugenio, we do regularly ask both our staff and our counsel about what our obligations are under our ordinance and what our discretion is under our ordinance. Guidelines being guidelines, we regularly go against. Some guidelines give waivers from guidelines, give avenues around certain guidelines because they're just that. And so relying on something that's a kind of a permissive set of not rules, but a path to follow that we can deviate from. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with the fact that we're going to be bound by guidelines because otherwise there would be, as I think Attorney Murray has pointed out, requirements and not permissive. But so the thing that I'm kind of wrestling with is in the ASMD, you seem to be indicating that, to almost put it simply, all open space is civic space, right? That we have a plan for open and green space to be used cohesively throughout the district that will be publicly accessible. But we make a distinction, I think, in the way that that's actually implemented through, for example, in this case, green roofs. How would you propose the green roof be publicly accessible? Do people get access to the roof 3 hours a day? That to me strikes as a little bit of an absurdity. What we've done in the past, not necessarily in the ASMD, but in other guidelines, the way that this board has interpreted open space versus civic space, is it's a Venn diagram and not concentric circles, right? So not all open space is civic space, while all civic space is open space. So we've taken some of those principles, and where privately owned open space is intended to be used as civic space, we've conditioned it thusly. The one that I can think of off the top of my head is the Max Packs project off of Lowell Street, between Lowell Street and Murdoch, where there is a central courtyard within those buildings that is confined within those buildings with a pass-through. And we imposed as conditions a number of years back that the public have access to that private space during certain hours. That was a recognition by the planning board that it is privately owned open space that we intended to be available to the public during certain hours. That's not what we did here. And we've done that in other cases too. That's the one that's jumping out at me. So I find it a little tricky to look at a set of guidelines as a set of requirements, because had we, in my estimation, wanted to make those requirements, we would have had the opportunity to do so. So I'm kind of wondering how you get over that hurdle by trying to convince us that we're supposed to be subject to a set of guidelines that we didn't intend to be stringent requirements.
Right. Yes, I understand the chair's question, and I appreciate the board's tasked with not an easy task with all these cases that come before them. I understand here. Ordinarily, I understand the board would be, the issue would be flagged by the building department, for instance, this plan is coming forward, it needs a waiver for X, Y, and Z, and I understand that was not done here. I just asked the chair to consider, although this is just a guideline and it's not a strict regulation, that you can't read that guideline in a vacuum. And I know that the 2025 master plan, I know it was a few years in coming, but it was indeed just adopted finally last year. I think in fact a little bit after that this project was finally considered. So I just think it's difficult to look at the master plan and it screams out in several areas that recent developments in the district appear to be private and uninviting. They emphasize the open space requirement. I just think it's difficult to square this development with what that master plan envisions. To answer the chair's kind of question, no, we're not asking that the public be invited up to the roof deck. I do think that's impractical, but I think the board should consider, going forward, the kind of precedent this may set. If the open space can merely be satisfied by a private roof deck, understanding the lot, it is small, but that's a problem that the applicant had when it came to the board. The kind of precedent this could set going forward. I think if developments like this essentially provide no public open space are allowed in succession, I think just defeats the purpose of the master plan. And I do think it's important that the master plan is relatively new here, adopted after the board approved this plan. I hope that answers the chair's question.
It does to some degree. So I guess I ask Attorney Murray to respond to that, because we do have a master plan that does call for a series. And I do see Amelia's hand. I just would like Attorney Murray to follow up to have an opportunity to respond. We do have an expectation that there will be a sufficient amount of open space that is also publicly accessible throughout the Assembly Square district. And while our staff did not recommend that this and didn't identify and didn't flag that this needed to be its own separate special permit at the time, that doesn't mean that we can't get things wrong sometimes and come back, which is exactly why we're here tonight. So I'm wondering if you might be able to identify a response to Attorney Eugenio's kind of concern that this isn't meeting the spirit of the plan that was set forward both several years ago and as amended last year.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. I think the point, there's a recognition that there's a lot of different types of property within the ASMD. Some of them are very large, some of them are very small. I think this one is in the micro district. There's no indication that for small properties there's a requirement that civic space is requirement. And in fact, that would be inconsistent with the zoning ordinance itself. So section 7.4.6 of the zoning ordinance, it applies master plan standards. Now, to be eligible for that, you have to have 50,000 square feet plus of, you have to be either be 2 lots or 50,000 square feet plus. And it imposes a 25% civic space requirement. So that's what the city council that drafted the code wanted. That's consistent with the ASMD plan, that where you have these large pieces of property, there's a desire to make them, well, there's not a desire, there's a requirement. This is a standard that they be made publicly available. Now, it's aspirational maybe that in any time you can reasonably make something publicly available, that's something the board has the discretion to encourage, but the board's not required to impose that or to require a waiver from that. It's not a standard. And in this particular case, I think that OSPCD staff knew exactly what it was doing, and I think the board knew exactly what it was doing, which is that when you have a small parcel in this micro district area, and the only option for open space is on a rooftop, it doesn't make any sense for that from there to be a requirement that be publicly available or that you obtain a waiver for that. Again, the way to encourage and require civic spaces, it's set forth in the code itself. It just simply doesn't apply here.
Appreciate that response as well. Amelia, I know you had your hand raised at one point. I'd love to have you ask you a question. I want to be cognizant of the fact that it's 6:26 and at 6:30, this board needs to adjourn for a bit while we join the land use committee, but to the maximum extent that you all will be available, we would like to reconvene following that because we're not going to have an opportunity to conclude, I think, this line of discussion on this agenda item in the next 4 minutes. But I do want to at least have Amelia ask her question, and if it can be kind of responded to in the next couple of minutes, I'd appreciate it. If not, Amelia, if you think it's going to take a
No,
while.
I had two quick points of clarification. I don't think either of them are a question, but just to inform the discussion as it continues. I feel like a lot of the discussion here comes down to being careful about language. So I just wanted to clarify that the plan that I think you're all referencing is the neighborhood plan, not a master plan. There are also master plans that have been adopted for other parts of Assembly Square. I do not believe this parcel is one of them. So I believe we're discussing the neighborhood plan, unless someone wants to correct me on that. And that further, the neighborhood plan that is being referenced, the 2025 version, was not adopted, I think, for 5.5 months after this case was decided. So while it's something that is fine to reference as sort of the community's aspirations for the neighborhood, I don't think that it is a document that was in place as an adopted reference at the time that the board was reviewing these materials. I don't think either of those changes the discussion here. I just wanted to clarify since I'm not sure either of those had been clearly laid out.
Appreciate that, Amelia. I think you are likely right, and I just wanted to ask both counsel if that is indeed what you're referencing. I think Amelia's got an excellent point.
Yes, that's right. It is a neighborhood plan. I misspoke calling it a master plan per se. That's correct.
Yeah, I inadvertently, I latched onto that and I shouldn't have.
It happens sometimes. Amelia, I appreciate you calling that out and identifying it for what it is, which is a neighborhood plan, not the master plan that was adopted after this case
Not to
was.
not to be pedantic, just they have different
That's
levels
not, no, that's not at all.
reference in this conversation.
No, that's actually incredibly important. Okay, we have 2 minutes before we have to adjourn for the land use committee. Does anybody have anything quick that they would like to add for 2 minutes? Because what I'm going to do is bring you all back. First of all, can I just ask, does anybody else have any questions that they intend to ask when we reconvene? Okay. With that, then what I'd like to do is adjourn the planning board for the time being, or put us in recess rather, and reconvene after we have our joint hearing. And then we will take this up in more of a final aspect and probably take a vote on it, since it seems like people don't have questions right now. I think we're kind of solid on where we stand on this. So what I'm going to do is at 6:29 p.m., I'm going to put the planning board in recess, and I'd like to direct people to the link, which is separate from this, to the joint hearing with the land use committee.
May I
This
just
link will
quickly
stay
ask-
active.
I'm sorry, may I quickly ask how long you expect, just because I'm trying to figure out whether I should drive
Frankly,
home or
I
not.
have no idea. You're on the clock though, so don't worry. We'll see you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Corley, you want to move over to the land use committee one. There she goes. Okay. And everyone's feel free to turn your cameras off. They'll be gone.
Yeah.
I expect around 30 minutes for the presentation for that one.
Yeah, Dan, we can stay here in this room here. We don't.
Yes, you can hang out in this room and then you'll be aware of when they return. I'm doing the same thing. I'm staying here.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay.
I think it's a good thing that the chair said he had no idea how long that would go because Attorney Murray, I would have told you had plenty of time to drive home, and that would have been a lie.
Thank you.
It is 7:11 p.m. I thank council for waiting around until we concluded our joint hearing. Um, Planning board is back in session and kind of going with my usual reference to songs of Michael Anthony Capuano, MAC. It's the Return of the Mac. So a little Mark Morrison reference for you all. I knew John was going to appreciate that one. Very very middle school and high school dancing. Okay, so we have the continuation of a discussion on this remand order from the court. We have begun our kind of questioning by and between the planning board and the parties. We have, I think, still in the wings our attorney David Shapiro. David, you still with us? No, that's okay. I think we'll be okay. So,
I was having trouble on unmuting, but yes, I am still with you. I would never leave this board without something telling me.
much appreciated, David.
Thank you.
So we began this conversation. We had a few questions. Amelia raised a few points, and I just want to make sure that the board is satisfied with its understanding of the issue, as well as um, any answers that they might need from the parties before I think is an appropriate time to move forward with taking a vote on the question posed by the remand order. Okay. David, could you please give us some quick advice on exactly what it is that that you all need from this board? I know it's obviously an answer to the question whether it's yes or no, but I think there are some other uh, uh, obligations that are being put on the board that I want to make sure that we meet.
Sure. There is a request from the court. Actually, not a request. I'm just going to read it to you, but I think it would be helpful to do it this way. It says, "Order that the planning board may, at its election, but without being required to do so, by majority vote, set forth in a written statement its reasons for having voted as it did on the question, as it is directed in this order to consider." I think it would be helpful, practically speaking, for the board to provide some type of a rationale for its conclusion. And I don't know if this is part of your thinking too, but I know Mr. Bartman is here, and typically he may have like some kind of a thought on on at least his experience on the issue if you inclined to hear from him on this issue, because certainly you can hear from him as far as his staff view on this issue if the board would like to.
Yeah, we welcome any and all
Yeah.
support in us.
Yeah, so I think it'd be helpful to have the
Responsibility.
rationale in some fashion on the record, just so that the
Yeah.
court, I'm sure, would appreciate it.
Yep.
I think
No,
both parties
for
probably
sure.
agree with that. I think.
Sure. So who else is it, David, that we ought to hear from?
Dan Bartman? No, yeah,
Dan. Okay, well, for sure.
Yeah. Is Dan here? He should be here, I
Yeah.
think.
He is.
I'm
He's living in the shadows.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Bartman. I'm the planning director for the division in the strategy and development department for the city of Somerville. I don't know if you have any specific questions. I would like to emphasize, I think the main aspect of this question for implementation purposes over time, especially since the adoption of the new zoning ordinance in 2019, it really is, to me, the split between a project in the Assembly Square district that's required because of its size to provide civic space versus a project, again, because of its size being smaller, not being required to provide civic space. And that we treat all of those are definitionally open space. So any sentence that uses the word open space will draw a relation to either civic space or open space, but the board is required to actually parse the type and condition of space that's coming into existence and make a decision about when design guidelines are applicable to projects. So I would also agree that the sections in Article 2 that talks about word usage in the code is informative to making that decision. And that our standards are written as requirements and that our guidelines are written as suggestions or recommendations, and that they are not always followed for every project because they don't apply to every project. And in my experience, that is how the board has looked at each individual question that's put in front of it. And so I would expect that same type of behavior in this situation. So I don't know if you have any other specific questions. I'm happy to answer. And in meeting the court's obligation, I would make at least one finding in tradition for how you typically reach your decisions, to tell the court your reasoning for why you did this. There could be more than one though. If there's 5 reasons, I would highlight all of those. If each of you have different reasons, you might include those. It's just backing up the yes or no answer to the question.
Dan, what I think you just did is distill the reasons that this board elicited both at the initial public hearing of this as well as tonight. If there are, so what I would ask is when the board's vote is taken, that to the extent that the answer is I believe the answer is no, as it supports the board's previous position, such that a different special permit was not required, that we incorporate some aspect of what Dan just distilled for us, which is kind of what we discussed tonight, and which is what the board discussed through testimony and through its own deliberations back when this case was up for its initial hearing. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add prior to us moving for a vote on this? Okay. David, before we move forward with a vote, to make sure that we're actually voting the way that we intend to vote, do you mind reading us the exact question that the court has asked us to answer so that we can make sure that we give the answer that we need to add?
Yes, and I will, and if I missed anything, I assume that the attorneys will correct me, but I'm going to read to you what I have right in front of me. The question being asked is, does Stella Moon's project violate Somerville zoning ordinance section 7.4.7.d9, so that the project would require an additional waiver to be able to proceed lawfully.
I appreciate that. And what I would ask then is on that question, I would ask Alvaro to please poll each member for our vote on that question. As Attorney Shapiro has just read, a no vote is to effectively uphold what we previously did and say that there was no additional special permit required and that did not violate our ordinance. A yes vote would be the contrary.
Jahan Habib,
No.
Lynn Richards,
No.
Luke Schuster,
Oh,
Coralie Cooper,
No.
Michael McNeely,
No.
Amelia Above,
No.
Michael Capuano.
And I would ask Alvaro, as I presume you are the person who will be drafting up the response, maybe Attorney Shapiro. The reasons for that vote are, I think, distilled in Dan's last comment, and as further discussed by members of the board tonight. And I would also include, for reference, the issues that we discussed during the public hearing itself a period of time ago.
Mr. Chair, there was just a little bit of a cutoff on the audio when I was hearing your vote. So just to clarify, was your vote no?
My vote was no.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Shapiro, was there anything more for us to do tonight, or that you would advise us to clarify?
I myself would say no, but I think it's probably worth checking with the attorneys, make sure I didn't leave anything out, because they're also parties to the court case. Just
And
make sure I
Dan.
didn't leave anything out, so maybe worth checking with them.
And I see Dan's hand as well.
just through the chair, just a question to Attorney Shapiro or any of the other representatives. Is there a timeline? We normally have 14 days to produce a written decision when the board takes action. Otherwise, is there a timeline to produce their written?
One thing I will mention is, I think I think everyone would agree with this, is that there's no requirement on this particular case to go through the same formalities that you usually do with a decision that, that's typically gone through. If you can simply just write something up and have it, and I can represent to the court that this is a decision and the rationale for it, I believe that will suffice. But I'm going to hear from Attorney Murray and both attorneys on this to make sure I'm not misstating their views on it too. In my view, once again, is that as long as a decision is written up in some fashion with the rationale in some way, and that is indicated to represent the view of the board, that would suffice. But I'll hear from both attorneys to make sure I didn't misstate that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine, but on the order on page 3, David,
Yep.
To the ordered section, the paragraph 2 from the bottom, says that at the same meeting at which the vote occurs, the planning board shall complete and sign the form attached here to as Exhibit A, and within 5 business days of the vote, the planning board's counsel, David Shapiro, shall file with the court the completed Exhibit A vote tally. And
Yep.
if rendered, so I think, I think if the board wanted more than 5 days to issue its written decision, written reasons, if it chose to do that, I certainly wouldn't object. I think getting the vote tally to the court, as for all practical matters, I think that's what the court will want to see that. And I think if it's a little later, I don't think anybody has to rush to get a statement of reasons if they feel more comfortable, a little more time. I assume Attorney Eugenio would agree with that. He can speak for himself, but I think just getting the board, getting the court the vote within 5 days. That was one of the things that's said in the order. If that's a problem, I'd waive that requirement. But I.
Yeah, I don't disagree with. Oh, I am not using. I don't disagree with any of that. The board statement is at its election how much or little it wants to say regarding its reasoning. That's how I see it.
Just as the chairman, obviously the vote tally can be communicated to the court and prior to the actual written statement with the rationale. I assume it will be passed by both me and David, just to make sure that it accurately reflects the rationale of the board.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that was essentially the nature of my question. We normally
Yep.
sometimes exercise the 14 days to make sure that our writing reflects your desires, and there's a couple edit rounds sometimes. So just trying to understand how much time, especially since tomorrow's a holiday.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, it's pretty ministerial, but I think one of the requirements is that the um, document be signed by members of the planning board. Is that something that we can do via electronic signature?
I'm not sure it's required to get a signature of all the members. I mean,
Okay.
I can double check with the attorneys on that, but if it is, we'll get it.
If you need me, you already have my e-sig. Otherwise, I can send it over.
Right. Okay.
Okay. I think that's all for this agenda item. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I think the official business hours of the city expire at 7:30 tonight. David, is that right?
I believe that's right. I have 4 more minutes to work.
See, I got you. I got you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you all. Have a nice
Thank you.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Have a good weekend,
Thank you
everybody.
to the board.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay. With that done, let me just check our agenda. Okay, 222 Broadway is continued, Middlesex Avenue is continued, 32 Webster Avenue is on for tonight. McGrath Highway will be on for tonight. Okay, let me do this. Let me bring 32 Webster Avenue to the fore. Who needs to be unmuted, shared, the whole thing?
This is Oliver from staff. For anybody else from the 32 Webster application team, please raise their hand. Thank you.
I think we have who we need, which is great. So welcome back, everybody, on the Thursday before a long weekend. I do know that you've presented some additional materials to the staff and to the board, and we have a supplemental staff memorandum as well related to the project. And I'm hoping that you might be able to give us an overview of what was, we know because we've seen it, but not all members of the public necessarily have, an overview of what the changes have been since the last time we spoke. Whoever of you would like to.
Go ahead, Phil. I think I don't know if there's something beyond what we submitted that was submitted by the planning board. You're referring to the documents that we submitted.
Exactly. Which was done in response to some of the comments and questions and concerns by the board from the last few meetings. So we appreciate that.
Right. Well, thanks everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the design that you've all seen before, but the big push was for this. We heard a lot of conversations about accessibility, and that's really where we made our main changes. So as everybody knows, well, maybe not everybody knows, but a new construction, Massachusetts, for condominium use, all the units are required to be Group 1 accessible. So every common area needs that. An elevator is required to go to all. If you have an elevator, all the units are required to be Group 1. So that is the requirement by the accessibility board. What we are proposing for this project is to increase it to even a further amount. So what we've done is included 3 Group 2A units. So, sorry, it's a little boring to read text on the screen, but essentially, these units have fully accessible bathrooms. So what you might see in a commercial space, right? Full area for a turning radius in the bathroom, grab bars for the toilets, enlarged showers. The kitchens have a full turning radius, clear space between the island and the rest of the kitchen, as well as ovens that are at a height that is fully accessible by a wheelchair. So we're just showing the difference between Group 1 and Group 2, but now we're proposing that we're going to have 3 of these in the building. So the first would be on the ground floor. So again, fully accessible by an elevator, but you can see the enlarged bathroom sizes, the enlarged bedroom sizes, walk-in closet, and again, that enlarged kitchen with some additional amenities there. We're proposing then the other 2 Group 2A units to be on the second floor. So that's unit 202 and 207. I don't want to speak to affordability, but I know Ryan might have some considerations about how we disperse these within our affordable units. So let me chime in.
Sure, yeah, I mean, so yeah, our intention is for these units to be designated for affordable. If you look at our typical one bedrooms, these are larger. Actually, they're our largest one bedroom units. So we're designating those large units to be affordable, and that would be our proposal. Leading up to, I guess, this meeting, some of the things that we heard from the board that we previously discussed was the bike room, the number of bike spaces, which we've gone through and made some edits, added some additional bike parking spaces. We discussed the design, which varying from what the original UDC recommendation was, we came back and showed you some of the other designs, and we've agreed to go with a little bit more of a classic look that blends a little bit better with the neighborhood. So we're changing the design. And finally, one of our enhancements to the project that we're proposing is to increase from the Group 1 to the Group 2A, as Phil said, and make these larger one bedrooms designated affordable and fully accessible. And then the last, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about, Phil, or if we should get into the 3-bedroom discussion.
Before you do that, Brian, can I just ask a quick question about this is not usually my line of questioning, but I will ask because I think I saw this note somewhere in one of the papers. Would the modified amount of bike parking require you to submit a new TAP? Did I see that somewhere? Am I mistaken?
I can take that,
either through
Ryan.
you or
Kit, who is traveling, submitted a supplemental letter that our bike room updates will require updated tap, but that won't be per her notice, not until at least the building permit stage. So
I just wanted to make sure, thank you, David. I just want to make sure that the board had all of the documentation that it would need if we wanted to move forward with the application as it stood today. So thank you. I wanted to clarify. I knew I saw that somewhere. I wasn't sure exactly how that was going to play in with what you presented. So thank you.
you're welcome. Yes, and the mobility department has seen this updated layout as well. So we just have to get the formal TAP updated.
So should I carry on to the last kind of the,
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
please
don't want to call it the 3rd bedroom, 3rd rail discussion.
Yeah, go for it. Go with God.
So we went back and looked at the floor plans of the entire building, and we can go through this starting from the basement all the way up to the top floor, but we have 6 2-bedroom units in the whole building. Floors 1 through 3 only have 1 2-bedroom unit per floor. Originally, we thought, well, maybe we could look at the basement. Let's go down the basement, Phil. We thought, oh, maybe we could look at the basement and see if there's a way to do something down there. And even if we combined those two studios in the bottom left corner, that would give us roughly 1,050 square feet, which is still pretty hard with Somerville's dimensional standards for a bedroom to cram 3 bedrooms in there. So we could, even if we were to combine and eliminate a unit in the basement, it doesn't make sense. So then if you go up to the first floor, as you can see, we have a 2 bedroom unit there that's in the corner next to another 1 bedroom that's very small. So there's not enough. Once again, we'd essentially have to eliminate a unit on the first floor to make a 3 bedroom there. Then going up to the second and third floors, they're the same, similar floor plans. We have 1 2 bedroom unit. There's no way to create a 3 bedroom in the 2 bedroom footprint that we have there. We would essentially have to merge or substantially alter one of the 1 bedrooms to make it would pretty much become unusable if we were to do anything but merge it. This is the same case for the second and third floor. And then on the top floor, we have 3 2 bedroom units that are nicely laid out, but we'd essentially have to cannibalize one of the 2 bedroom units to cram in a unit on the top floor, this is our top floor level, which is kind of the most desirable level, and this is where, in terms of making the project viable for us, these are the units that are obviously the most desirable and the first to sell. And so just looking at how this building's laid out, there's really no way for us to add a 3 bedroom unit in here without eliminating a unit. So we're trying to color inside the lines here of the ordinance of what's required. We're not playing unit games, not going above 30 units to not trigger the 3 bedroom requirement. It's simply the nature of the footprint of the land and of how this building fits within that land, that it's not feasible for us to add a 3 bedroom in here. So
Okay.
that's we're
I'm
hoping
gonna
our
ask you-
compromise with the adding the group 2 accessible units that are larger 1 bedroom units and making those affordable can be viewed as an acceptable compromise.
I'm gonna ask some questions on this in a minute. But what I'd like to do, and I appreciate the overview and the discussion. I would like to, because we had some discussion on the group 2 affordable, which was Amelia's suggestion. I would love to hear what folks think about the revised plans. Amelia, if the revisions kind of meet what your expectations were on this, as well as anybody else, and then I'm happy to ask some questions and raise some points. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased with the incorporation of the group 2 units into this. I know it's something that may not come up in a lot of policy discussions, but just as a note of context for my fellow board members, our immediate past chair of the Commission for Persons with Disabilities was dislocated out of Somerville because she could no longer find an affordable, accessible unit that met her unique accessibility requirements. And I think that we have a lot of cases of individuals like that who are struggling with the cross-section of affordability and the constraints on those units that are available and the need for certain accessibility accommodations. So the possibility of adding 3 affordable condo units in the city that are also group 2 accessible, I think is a really strong contribution and goes a long way towards sort of making a dip in that very large bucket that we have of deficit. So I want to thank the applicant team for coming forward with this sort of thoughtful approach to that. I know that there's still a lot of interest in the 3 bedrooms, so I'll leave it to the rest of you to discuss that, but I'm very happy to see these and appreciate the design team and the development team's work to try to accommodate them.
David, did you want to respond to Amelia's?
Just real quick, one of our other team members, Matt Moore, is in the attendees tab, and he has his hand raised, and I think he has a
No,
he's
thank
part
you.
into the discussion as well. So just want to be able to
Thank you.
tag
Could
him
we
in.
make sure that Matt Moore is able to join the discussion?
Yes, he has been added as a panelist.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, if you can just introduce yourself for the board with your name and your affiliation, assuming you're involved with the project.
Yes, I am. Matt Moore, with Kinvara Capital. I'm one of the team members.
I think you're muted on your end, but I'm happy to hear your contribution.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Matt Moore with Kinvara Capital. I'm one of the team members here for the project at 32 Webster.
And think you have anything to add beyond that? Just want to be on the screen.
Just want to be part of the panelist here.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, of course. Who else would like to have some discussion? Scanning my members here, and it's hard to see because we've got a lot of people on the panel. So, okay. Seeing none. So I guess I'll go. And so I'm of mixed mind here. So I appreciate Amelia's suggestion to have an alternative to the bedroom unit count. I think you've certainly met that, and based on what Amelia has said, who certainly knows this area far better than I think you've met that. The concern that I see is that as you went, Ryan, kind of floor by floor talking about the units, you said in order to build a three bedroom unit, I would need to cannibalize another unit, right? And that's frankly that was kind of the expectation. Is not to add more units on, to dip you into 30, but to look at what you already had and how to reconfigure some of the existing floor plate to accommodate that. So I'm a little bit, and that's exactly what's happened with other developers who have come before this board, and we've asked them to, add a three bedroom or several, and they've said, okay, we went from having X number of 1 and 2 bedrooms, we've reduced that count in favor of 1 or 2 3 bedrooms. So that was kind of the expectation that I had of you. Is not to say where in the otherwise dead space can I find a 3 bedroom while keeping the existing unit mix. It was let's move some walls around and see where we're at. And that's not what I think we saw. So on that basis alone, I'm not really happy with what you came back with. And here is where my mixed mind is. Okay. You met Amelia where she was on what I think is a reasonable alternative. I also want to address something that you, Ryan, raised, I think, last time we met, that kind of sat with me, and I was ruminating on it over the last couple of weeks when we were talking about bedroom count, and I raised the house next to my parents and the increasing cost of single family homes in Somerville, because that's the larger floor plate that families are looking for. And you indicated, and this is not necessarily a question for you. This is going to be a broader discussion point that I'm going to have with my board and with my staff. Is you said that when families are looking for larger housing stock, whether it's homes or something other than that, they're not looking at apartment buildings. They're looking more at single family homes and townhomes. Now, I don't know if that's true. As one person, that seems actually to make sense. So your response to my concern was one that I wasn't really happy with, but it's one that I think is worth exploring. And so I sit here as one member saying this city needs more family size and larger housing stock. We are, replete with studios, 1 beds and 2 beds. And then I say, is the solution you? And I'd love to say the answer is yes, because that absolves me of any responsibility, but I think the answer is actually us, as a board and as a community, because we have gone so much towards just build housing, build housing, build housing, build housing, irrespective of what it is. Let's build triple deckers. Let's add ADUs. Let's do this. Let's do that. And we're not necessarily, I think, legislating on the type of housing that we actually need. We've got some. We're looking at affordable housing. We're looking at units in the aggregate, but I'm not sure we as a community are necessarily looking at how to effectuate the construction and the availability of larger housing stock. So while I'm not really pleased with the answers that you gave me, I'm also, as one member, not going to put what I consider to be one of the failures of the community legislative process on one development. Particularly where I think you've met the concerns of this board in other aspects, both with the bike parking and with the group 2 or level 2 ADA units. So with that kind of in the back of my mind, I'm not at a position where I'm not going to support this project, because I think some of my expectations are broader than you. I'm not going to say I'm thrilled with this. I don't think this is the A+ project that I was hoping to get, but on balance, I think you're meeting it insofar as this member is concerned. As well as I think some of the concerns related to the affordability of the accessible units too. I think there was a concern for some of our board members, and I think without speaking for other members, that you may have met that expectation too. What I want to see from my board is, after this vote is taken and we move forward to the next couple of meetings, I've already spoken with Alvaro, and I've spoken with Amelia. And what I want is a list of questions and data points that we are looking for as a board, because I have several that I want on the construction of larger housing tracts. Where is the affordability gap? Where is the market gap? What's preventing us from being able to achieve what I think is kind of that third or fourth prong of the old Somerville creed that we had for years and years and years of, live, work, play, and raise a family. Because all the families that I know that once they have a kid that's gotten above a certain age or had multiple kids, there has been a lack of availability of space in this city for them to reasonably achieve. And I don't like the idea that if you have to have a family, you've got to have $2 million. Everybody I know that's got 2 kids is either living very, very cramped or moved out. It used to be that you could raise a family in the city, and I'm not saying that I want to, be 1985 in Somerville again. I was there, it wasn't great. But I also don't want to be in 2026 Somerville, where it seems like the average tenure of a resident is 6 years, which I think is a data point that I saw at one point, and I want to get some clarity on that. So I don't want to put what I consider to be some failures of the city on this applicant. I'm happy to move forward with the application tonight, as is and as kind of developed throughout the process. So I want to thank you for working with us in that aspect. But I see Michael's hand and I see Luke's hand. But so I'm gonna stop kind of my concerns, but I will ask those questions of my members to be passed through Jahan over the next couple of Alvaro. I was looking at you, Jahan, sorry. Through Alvaro over the next couple of weeks, so that we can have a discussion, hopefully with the housing division, to see where we're at on some of these goals.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, hang on. I saw Michael first.
I just want to ask a clarification on your data request, if I may.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
Sorry, Michael. So the ask to the other board members at this stage is to email to Alvaro a list of questions regarding housing stock and requirements or requests for data that staff from planning or the housing division might be able to provide to have a more fulsome conversation on this topic. Is that correct?
That is my hope. So you had a great idea of talking to the sustainability folks. I would like to talk to the housing folks to see where we're at on some of this stuff.
Thank you for the
Um,
clarification.
yeah, yeah, exactly. This happened to come to a head during this particular application. Um, it shouldn't fall on this particular application to solve a citywide issue. Um, but it's something that I'd like to have a broader discussion on. So thank you for clarifying that, Amelia. I saw Michael first and then Luke and then Jahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, apologies if my camera isn't working. Not really sure why it cut out, but I'm here. Been here the whole time. Second,
You're a baby. You're hanging out with the baby.
no, baby's in the other room. He's hanging out. Second is I did step out of the hearing 2 weeks ago for a couple of minutes. So just from an administration perspective, I did go back and rewatch those couple of minutes of the recording and filed the appropriate affidavit. So just wanted to get that out there. Last, in order to not suck too much air out of the room, I wanted to echo Vice Chair Aboff's comments and appreciation around kind of your support to bring in some affordable, accessible units. I really appreciate you working with us on that. I also likewise would like to echo Chair Capuano's comments around, really realizing that this is not a perfect project, but that it also may not be on you to fix this problem. So appreciate the fact that we're going down that path. I did have one administrative question. So we've had this resubmission of TAP come up previously. Can anyone on this board remember whether or not we waited for that TAP to be completed or whether or not we were comfortable with kind of proceeding as it's been proposed in this particular application?
Anybody on staff
I can answer
or
to the best
Amelia
of my
in your
memory.
recollection?
I think that there are cases where we have waited on an updated TAP to take a vote. I can think of one or two offhand. I'm in my memory, those were issues where the changes that had been proposed related to either vehicular parking or truck loading. And to the extent that neither of those have changed over the course of this application, I would be, as one member, open to that being a decision, this being a condition that was subject to mobility's approval, but otherwise to be handled at the staff level. Because as one member, I don't see the change to bike counts as impactful in a potentially negative way as either changes to car access or loading access. But I do think, Michael, that in the past we've often waited.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So as another member, I appreciate that view and agree that I don't see the TAP holding up this application. I just want to make sure that we as a group were being consistent in our requirements to wait for TAPs. And it sounds like this is a really good reason why not to wait for that TAP. So thank you for that background, and I'll give my time.
I certainly defer to staff if someone has a more clear record of that. That's my personal recollection, I should clarify.
So don't know if planning board's practice on this has been absolutely dispositive of how we need to act on every particular application.
Mr. Chair, through you, my name is Kelly. I'm covering for Kit tonight because she is out of office.
Hi, Kelly. I don't think we know you yet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
I've come to a couple of the past meetings, but as I'm new, I can't answer definitively, but from my discussions with Kit, this is a fairly okay pathway and mobility is willing to we spoke with the mobility team in order to get this within like their approval range, right? So from my understanding, it is okay that we proceed without the tap at this moment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Luke, I think you were on deck.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the discussion. Your comments about, bringing this discussion up a level to think beyond just this one project, I really appreciate that. And it reminded me of a anecdote of sorts I was thinking of sharing at the last meeting, but the discussion was just going along. So I share this about as fodder for the longer discussion we're going to have. But it was sparked by realizing, for this project, if we squeezed 2 3-bedroom units into it somehow, for me, it was still a little tough to picture. I mean, maybe those 2 could get scooped up by families with kids living in them. But what families, one of the key things they're going to be looking for is some density of other families as well. And just a couple 3-bedroom units in a larger building that wasn't really designed for families, I think makes a big difference. And so the anecdote was just in a totally different context. I was talking with a longstanding planner in the Metro West suburbs in Greater Boston. And the nature of the discussion there was the exact opposite of what we have in Somerville all the time, which was concern that too many families would move into new apartments and then create a pressure on their school system with rising student enrollment and student costs. And she was saying often there, the response to that concern is, oh, don't worry, families don't live in apartments for the most part. So you can have a 100-unit apartment building and you're just not going to get that many families. And from a pure fiscal perspective, it's a net winner for the community because those families aren't sending their kids to the schools. What she said from her experience, though, is there have been a couple of times apartment buildings were built out in Metro West, and it surprised everybody how many kids were living in those places. And one example she gave was, I'm looking at an email from this chain just to read it. They thought that there were 70+ new students in this one new development that surprised everybody, with school buses picking them up in the morning. And it turned out that the developer's firm had a working relationship with a company that brings highly educated talent to the US from other countries for 2 years to work in our high-tech, biotech, and life sciences industries. And they just created a pipeline to families to consider coming and moving those apartments. And just speaks to how these subtle things on the margin make a big difference. And then the other thing she said was, it obviously makes a huge difference if you're designing the shared amenities in a building to be, a high-end gym or something versus a playground and play space for kids. And so all those subtle design choices seem like they really do make a big difference in terms of whether families are going to live in, it's not just 3-bedroom units too. It's some families will live in a 2-bedroom unit. So this doesn't lead me to have any answers for what we should be doing as a city to push for that kind of development and that kind of marketing and subtle decisions. But I do think we might come up with some creative ideas beyond the one-off adding a 3-bedroom unit here and there. So look forward to more of that conversation.
Thank you. Jahan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a quick question for staff. Just reading the supplemental staff memo from June 10th. I'm referring to the now section 2nd paragraph. As of the time of issuance of the staff memo, plans have not been submitted showing any change to the bedroom count or affordable accessible units. Should updated plans be shown at the hearing or sent to city staff after this memo is published, planning staff requests that these plans be reviewed by the Inspection Services Department and deemed compliant before a building permit can be issued. I just wanted to get some feedback from staff regarding this matter. If there's any concerns or any items that need to be raised here.
I'm not particularly sure. So sorry, I'm reading the memo too. Should updated plans be shown at the hearing or sent to city staff after this memo is published? Planning staff requests that these plans be reviewed by inspectional services and deemed compliant. So I'm assuming what it is that The team here for 32 Webster had sent over plans that I think their deadline was Thursday at 7:30 p.m. of last week, so that we could put it on in the packets to give to the ZB or to the planning board so that they could review it. I don't believe ISD has reviewed those plans, and so they would have to go through our ISD review to make sure that they're compliant. But the assumption is that the plans that they gave will get reviewed. So that's essentially it, is that the plans that were updated to include the accessible units just have not been reviewed by ISD, but they would be before a building permit would be issued.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying. And thank you, Mr. Chair, as well.
You're on mute, Michael.
Mr. Chair, you're on mute.
Oh no, I said it's 8 o'clock. It's earlier than what we've usually seen you. So good job on getting in early. So what we've got is a number of items that are in front of us as it relates to this application. And let me check on one thing. I was waiting on one item from Alvaro, and it hasn't come through quite yet, but just give me a moment. So, so we have 3 votes on this application for 32 Webster Avenue. The first is for the site plan approval. So following public testimony, review of the submitted materials and deliberation of the required considerations outlined by the zoning ordinance, I move to approve with the conditions outlined in the staff memoranda, the site plan approval to develop an apartment building in the mid-rise 4 zoning district. Seconded by Amelia. Can I have a roll call, please?
Johan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael McNeely,
Aye.
Ilya Abov,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Aye. Following public testimony, review of this is the special permit for height. Following public testimony, review of the submitted materials and deliberation of the required considerations outlined by the zoning ordinance, I move to approve with the conditions outlined in the staff memoranda. The request to construct a mechanical penthouse that exceeds the maximum height in the mid-rise 4 zoning district. Seconded by Amelia. Alvaro, can we please have a roll call?
Johan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael McNeely,
Aye.
Amelia Abov,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Aye. This is the special permit for the residential use. Following public testimony, review of the submitted materials and deliberation of the required considerations outlined by the zoning ordinance, I move to approve with the conditions outlined in the staff memoranda, the request for residential housing use in the mid-rise 4 zoning district. Seconded by Amelia. We have a roll call, please.
Johan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael McNeely,
Aye.
Amelia Abov,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Aye. The agenda item passes with 1 no vote. Congratulations all and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Before we part, and I don't want to extend your meeting any further. Thank you so much for your positive vote. I did forget to mention, in one of the previous meetings, I think it might have been Len or Coralie was looking for data related to the city's housing needs and how housing is being used. And we dug up some info. There was a RKG Associates report done for 2025 Somerville housing needs. And it's a very long report. It's 112 pages. Um, but it talks about the need for larger family-oriented housing and particularly, well, talking about developments like this that are small condominium oriented for sale market rate developments. It mentioned that 3-bedroom units in these types of developments are not the solution the city is looking for, at least from a market rate perspective. It mentioned that they're looking for rental and affordable with a capital A, 3-bedroom units. Those are in demand and in desire, but 3-bedroom units in this type of building market rate, at least once again, is not super desirable. One thing I would like to note is that, as a housing creator, we try to color in the lines. We don't, we can't interpret what's not on the page. So if the city is, desiring to produce more affordable ownership units, I would propose that maybe they consider looking into incentives of how we could, as developers and housing creators, include these type of units affordably, whether that's relooking at how you do the the affordable inclusionary calculations. If someone's able to include a 3-bedroom unit in a smaller building like this, I think that would be well received in the community and help us put our thinking caps on and how we can solve that issue long term. But we appreciate your vote on this now, and I would point you to the housing needs assessment for how we might be able to think about that long term.
Thank you, Ryan. Good luck to you all.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thanks,
You as
everyone.
well. Have a good long weekend.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the mic is my man Hank. Now next what we've got is, I believe, 1 McGrath Highway, which is the last item on our agenda, and I believe, Amelia, this is your time to say goodnight. You're on
Thank
mute.
you, Chair. I will recuse myself from this item, so I will leave you all time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will wait for Amelia to log off so we can proceed. She has departed. She has recused herself from this agenda item. I would ask for the applicant and team to be unmuted, to be shared, to do whatever they need to do. What I will say is this: it is my understanding that this applicant recently received a variance or variances from the ZBA last night, it might have been, and the appeal period for those variances has not yet passed. So the planning board is going to open this item. I think it's already been opened. We will hear a presentation. We will take some testimony as needed. We'll ask some questions as needed, but we are not going to take a vote on this until after any appeal period on those variances has expired, so that we actually know that we can vote on this thing.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair. I would ask
Good
if staff could please promote, if they haven't already, Christine Thomas, Michael Malinowski, and Jason Diorio. And Jason Diorio will be driving the slides. So I'm attorney Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street in Somerville, the attorney for Summerbridge Hotel LLC. Christine Thomas is here from Summerbridge Hotel. Jason Diorio is the project architect. Michael Malinowski from Allen & Major is the project civil engineer. So We could get the slides, Jason, going. There we go. That's us. We can go to the next slide. So this is a return to you of the hotel project for the One McGrath Highway, which is part in Somerville and part in Cambridge. The hotel project was previously approved for this site in 2017, but stalled due to unforeseen environmental issues, which caused a redesign. In 2019, it was again approved. This time it was by the Zoning Board of Appeals under the old zoning with site plan review and variances. Then the zoning changed and COVID hit, and the lab building was proposed and approved for 15 McGrath Highway, which is the property on the left next door to where you can see the circle where we are. We go to the next slide. So this red, this is where 1 McGrath is. Go to the next slide. And the blue was the 15 McGrath, and that's the lab building that was permitted. So we then worked with them to get together to do a joint project with the two properties. So in 2023, both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board approved the hotel again, granting a variance and the Planning Board, the Zoning Board granted a variance and this board granted site plan approval and 2 special permits for this hotel at that time. That approval envisioned a joint driveway, one driveway for the 2 properties to use, the lab building and the hotel, and shared parking at the 15 McGrath property, where parking for the hotel would be over at the 15 McGrath, because it worked pretty well. The hotel's busy nights and weekends, the lab building busy during the week. It was kind of a nice win-win. Then the 15 McGrath lab building project started by digging a pit. It filled with water and they stopped. Maybe it stopped and filled with water might be the better order. We go to the next slide.
We're getting into the summertime, Adam. I'm gonna be hanging down there for a little bit with a cocktail.
Yeah. What the press called the Save More Liquors Memorial Pool. This is the site that we have as former car wash and warehouse site at 1 McGrath. We go to the next slide. This is also our site. As you can see, it's pretty much entirely paved with no stormwater controls whatsoever and been derelict for a very long time. You can see on the lower left, there's a very large stone retaining wall behind the property and the 1 McGrath, and above it is that community path, and then the Green Line extension beyond that. This will come into play later. Next slide. So there you can see the lovely pool that is the 15 McGrath lab building that started and has stalled and is not looking like it's going forward anytime soon. So the problem with all of this is now Summerbridge Hotel, after its 3rd approval of this hotel in both Somerville and Cambridge, because it has to get approved in both communities, cannot build because of what was approved, because well, obviously we can't share the driveway and we can't do shared parking with a building that isn't happening. We also can't build our building close to that pit because it's not structurally safe, nor can we do shoring or anything over by there. So the timing of these 2 projects, the lab building and the hotel, are no longer aligned. But Somerbridge Hotel is not deterred. They are proposing now a separate driveway, which we moved to the other side of the property on the Cambridge side, and a different sized hotel, which is smaller, but still allowing space for this ramp. If you may recall, I don't know if you all recall, but we were providing space on the property for a ramp to go from the McGrath Highway bike path, which also goes over by the Grand Junction path, and so that people can get up to the top of the wall with bikes and pedestrians to the bike path that's up there now. And so by putting that land aside for that ramp to go up on our property, it moves the building over. We'll show you plans. It moves the building over to the left, but because of this pit on the other side, it moves the building over to the right. So the entire building gets smaller, and we end up with some issues. And then, as you saw, there's the large retaining wall behind it. If we go to the next slide. So, as you rightly said, Mr. Chair, so I just should show you, this is the neighborhood context while I'm at it. You can see the property surrounded by commercial structures a lot of chain stores. Across the street is the Twin City Plaza Shopping Center, which is mostly entirely chains. There are a number of limited service hotels around it in the Cambridge side of the property, not in Somerville. We're by the Superior Nut Company. We don't abut residential. And then behind us, as I said, is the wall, and then the bike path and the green line. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, and these are some of those other limited service Holiday Inn Express and such that are in Cambridge on the O'Brien Highway. This is across the way. So we go to the next one. Yeah, and there's a gas station. There's another Fairfield Inn Suites. The next slide. Yeah. So last night, this is what we're proposing. But before we get into the detail, last night, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as you rightly said, granted the 2 variances we needed for the project to allow for surface parking and for parking lot landscaping relief. So what we need next is your approval for this major revision of our prior site plan approval. And then we need 2 use special permits for the hotel use and for the formula business, which is the hotel. You've given hotel use special permit before, but it has since lapsed because that was 2023. So you can, I've shown you the context. I'm going to now ask Jason Diorio, the architect, to go through the renderings and elevations of what the hotel looks like now. The general style and look is the same, but as I said, we've had to make some adjustments. So Jason.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Attorney Dash. I'm just going to do a quick run through. I have a set of slides that are the previously approved and then the new proposal, sort of bouncing back and forth between each other. So up on the screen right now is the previously approved rendering. I think everybody's mostly familiar with this. I'm going to jump to the next slide. And this is our new proposed rendering. So as you can see, a lot of very similar materials, actually identical materials, the same general layout of the building with the horizontal and the vertical corrugated panels. The oversized windows, the wood accent panels, and still the dark trim and the dark windows. So very similar design. We kept all of the same intent, and just as Attorney Dash just noted, we moved the building and adjusted to fit within the constraints of the site. These are the previously approved elevations. So a 6-story building, black and white, but shows what we just saw on the rendering. I'm just going to flip through these quickly. This is the rear of the building. And then some of the interior courtyard of the building, which we'll look at the plans in just a moment. And then this is the currently proposed elevations. So again, very similar 6-story building, a lot of the same exterior design that was on there before. This red line, just to call this out, I know it's probably a little hard to see on the screen, but there's a red line on the bottom of the screen where my mouse is on. And then again on the right, this is just showing the town lines between the two municipalities. So on this bottom image, the left side is Somerville, the right side is Cambridge. And then opposite on this upper portion. So this is the main entry drive now located within Cambridge, and to the left is Cambridge, to the right is Somerville, just due to the way that the property line spans the site. And again, this is the Somerville facade of the building. And then this is the rear of the building, which faces the community path and the tracks. So we also try not to make it, I call it a rear of the building, but all 4 facades on the building are intended to be just as nice as the next. This is the previously approved floor plan. So just showing where the main building was here. Along the left-hand side, this is the 15 McGrath property over here. You can see this is exactly where our structure came down. So the building was spanning the entire length of the property line, right along this left-hand western side of the site. It was a C-shape building, if you will, or a U-turned. Which I'll show in just a moment. So this was 199 keys, approximately 86,765 square feet. 63,560 square feet was located in Somerville of that.
You can show the line of the municipality going through the property while you're there.
Yep. So this curved line going through the middle of the screen is showing the 2 different towns. So the cities on the left-hand side is Somerville, and on the right-hand side was Cambridge. So this was the upper floor plan. So guest room stacked all the way up and through the building. Majority of the building in Somerville, again, pushed as far to the left as we possibly could against this property line. And then moving up, as some of you recall, we had the A space on the upper floor of the building with the rooftop bar, or not rooftop bar, but the rooftop amenity space, I'm sorry, coming through. So this is our currently proposed floor plans. So we've pushed the building away from this property line, as Attorney Dash just noted. This zigzag line going through the middle again is the property line. So Somerville on the left, Cambridge on the right. We'll look at the site plan in just a moment, but you can see a schematic site plan here of some parking in Cambridge and some parking in Somerville is here. The main drop-off has moved over to the right-hand side due to this new configuration. This image just shows the site is still underlaid below so that you can see, but again, same concept as before with the guest room stacking above the lobby floor on the first floor. Coming all the way up. The pinkish color is the rooms in Somerville, and the more tan color, peach color, are the rooms in Cambridge. So the current proposed hotel is 145 keys, so a reduction from 199, and then 62,646 square feet, which 44,508 square feet are located within Somerville. And then this is just a cleaned up plan, taking the background off just a little bit easier to see here. What the building looks like, again, stacked up all the way on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6.
We show where the path is as well before we hand it
Yep.
over.
Of course.
The ramp that goes up to the path.
So this is an illustrative site plan, which Michael Malinowski from Allen & Major will speak to in a moment. But just to show here on the right-hand side, there's a dashed line coming up through here. So this is dedicated reserve space for the future community path. This is 14'5" wide, all the way from the streetscape up to the top point of the retaining wall here.
Yeah, it's important to note that the retaining wall, as it goes from Cambridge to Somerville, gets taller. So that's why the ramp has to be over on the right side in Cambridge, because the wall is lower. We're also one of the only properties where this kind of a ramp's really going to be work. So, and we are committed still, even though we're being shoved away from that left side because of the pit, we're committed to keeping that ramp so that the bike paths on the McGrath O'Brien Highway people can get up to the top of the wall to the bike path behind up the top of the wall. However, as I said, that shoves the building more to the left while we're being shoved to the right, so the building gets smaller, and there's some changes that are being made, unfortunately, because of that. But it's generally, to be honest, it's essentially the same project. Michael Malinowski, the civil engineer, can you walk us through the site and the landscape plans? Then I want to talk about the legal arguments for the various forms of relief.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Dash. Michael Malinowski with Allen & Major Associates. Our offices are in Woburn, Mass. As Attorney Dash had noted, we do have a sort of dedicated space of 14.5 feet for that future ramp at the location where it terminates at the rear of the property. That wall is approximately 12 to 14 feet tall at that location, and the length of the ramp is such that it meets the slope requirement for a walkway. So it's not classified as a ramp per se. So there's no requirements for specific landings or anything like that. It will be fully accessible. As you move to the Somerville side at where the property sort of crosses that point in Somerville, the wall is approximately 20 feet tall. As you can see, the main entrance has been situated along the east side of the building. There is a bi-directional access way off of Monsignor O'Brien Highway, which traverses to the back, providing parking both within Cambridge and Somerville. There are currently 20 spaces located within the city of Somerville limits and 13 parking spaces within the city of Cambridge. Additionally, you can also see that we have provided both long-term and short-term parking. We have worked with the city and have an approved MMP that outlines all of that. So we do meet the requirements for both the short-term and long-term bike parking that the city of Somerville has. We also meet it for the city of Cambridge, which will be addressed with their respective boards. If we can advance the next slide, Jason, please. So this is the previous approved landscape plan. You can see that we had an extensive landscape planting measures both along the street, along Monsignor Bryant Highway, as well as the buffer between 15 McGrath and 1 McGrath, with substantial plantings situated atop the retaining wall. You can move to the next slide, please, Jason. This is the current plan, and you can still see that we do have an extensive landscape plan. We still maintain the street trees along Monsignor Bryant Highway, as well as landscaping buffer between 15 McGrath and 1 McGrath, with the extensive plantings situated atop the existing retaining wall. We can probably advance the next screen, Jason. That may show the green score. This is the previous plan where we used a combination of low plantings, deeper landscape beds, small trees, medium trees, large trees to meet that requirement. As part of this, we did have a component for a green roof, simply because of how the architecture of the building played out. You can advance to the next slide, Jason. This is the current green score plan. You can still see that we have the extensive landscaping. We do have a combination of low shrubbery, trees, medium trees, large trees. We do meet the green score for the project. It should also be noted that we do have a net reduction in the overall impervious cover for the project. It exceeds 3,600 square feet. As you had noted in some of the earlier slides, the existing property was vastly paved, which included the car wash and the the commercial building, with little to no stormwater. The proposed plan does have a comprehensive stormwater management system, which will collect roof water as well as treat surface runoff within the parking area. Will store and infiltrate that with an overflow connection to the municipal system within the city of Cambridge. Next slide, Jason. And I think that's it for the site piece. I let Adam Dash
Thanks,
on
Mike.
with his legal. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Can we just go back to one of those site plans just so we can have the visual while I'm talking? I want the first Malin Major slide. Yeah, you can see that sort of stippled gray area down by McGrath Highway at the bottom. I should note that we are widening the sidewalk as well in the front, and part of that widened sidewalk is on our property, so it's not only being compromised on the left and the right, but also the front. Also, I'd like to note that this is a contaminated site, and with a smaller hotel, it's really squeezing what Summerbridge Hotel can do at this point. However, they are committed to still providing that space for the ramp no matter what, as you can see. And we've entered into a covenant with the city of Somerville to make sure that happens for sure. So regarding the major revision of the prior site plan approval that you previously approved, I mean, it's our contention the project's essentially the same. It's a hotel, it's a similar design and materials. Certain aspects that had to be altered due to no fault of the applicant, but rather due to the inaction of the developer next door at 15 McGrath. But what was true in 2023 regarding that site plan approval you provided is still true, albeit with the involuntary revisions. So again, because that building's not going forward, some of the conditions that were in the 2023 planning board decision have to be removed or revised to eliminate references to the 15 McGrath Hotel and the joint development and the shared driveway and all those, the shared parking and all those things. And it kind of permeated through a number of conditions. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's a lot and they're in the narrative we filed. I can say that Summerbridge Hotel agrees with the proposed conditions in the staff memo, which I think addresses the changes that needed to happen there. And that's the memo from June 12th, which makes the condition changes to reflect the current state of the project, should you choose to approve it. The hotel still meets the requirements of site plan approval, as was the case in 2023 by having a cleaner contaminated site, activating a long vacant site, bringing in personal property, real estate, lodging, and meals taxes to the city from a hotel, providing a gateway to the city of Somerville along the McGrath-O'Brien corridor, providing the space for the ramp as I described, providing landscaping where there's essentially none on an almost entirely paved lot, providing stormwater control where there is currently none, facilitating the goals of SummerVision with a transit-oriented neighborhood infill development, making Somerville a more attractive place to be, and adapting a property to changing needs. Facilitates the goals of the high-rise district to accommodate development with an intense mix of multi-story mixed use and commercial buildings, serving the neighborhood, the community, and the region, and by providing jobs. The building meets all the dimensional requirements for a general building in the HR zone. It will improve transportation, and we have entered into a robust MMP with the city that's been signed. I would note the project also meets the requirements of the hotel use special permit, as it's been granted prior by this board. As I stated before, the hotel use makes the site cleaner, brings in taxes, creates a gateway, provides landscaping, improves the look and feel of the McGrath-O'Brien corridor, and helps activate it, and meets the goals of SummerVision in the HR district. There are other hotels on that corridor, but they're in Cambridge, and they're not the same, as we'll talk about in a second. This hotel is geared towards a younger guest. Christine Thomas from the Somerville Hotel can explain what this Moxie branded hotel is. Chris? There, Chris?
We have this person on the list. I don't.
I promoted her.
Yes,
I
you know what?
promoted her a
They're in
second.
the
Yep.
attendee list.
Okay, she's still in the attendees. All right. Yeah, because I think it's important for not only for the hotel use special permit, but also for the formula business special permit. I'll get to in a minute to explain that this isn't your standard formula business.
I'm happy to
Hey, Chris,
go on. I'm happy to go on camera, but I don't know how to do it exactly. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
I'm Christine Thomas, and I'm a partner in Summerbridge Hotel LLC, and I've been working on this project since the get-go. I'm here to talk about what is a Moxie because of my long years of experience in the hotel industry. And I have to say honestly that by the description of formula business, Moxie is a formula business because it's licensed by Marriott Hotels International for reservation delivery. But Moxie's known for having lively, exuberant, fun personality. It attracts a youthful thinking, outgoing guest who wants to experience a new location. Each Moxie is unique. No mandatory uniforms, no menus, no mandatory architecture or decor. It offers gathering space where local neighbors and guests can relax and socialize as it's open to the public for food and beverage, breakfast and dinner. Guests love the feel of being part of the place where they're visiting. It helps by getting started at the check-in at the bar, which is a more social rather than a traditional front desk. Moxie is not on every street corner. There's one in Boston, and right now it's the only Moxie in New England, with a second Moxie opening this summer in Portland, Maine. Again, Moxie will have a unique character that embraces their location, their specific location. Portland won't look like Kansas City or Washington, D.C. This will look like Somerville. I'll go on to say that there are several formula hotels nearby that do have all of them have required uniforms, menus, architecture, and decor. And because they're all 20 years or back into the late 1990s. They have a following. There are guests that love them because there's a free continental breakfast for guests only. But Moxie's not that. Moxie's different, and each hotel has a style of its own.
Thanks, Chris. So again, the special permit here for the hotel use, again, providing space for the ramp, and we're widening the sidewalk. The drop-off area in the site is on site, so as not to interfere with traffic on the McGrath-O'Brien Highway for pickup and drop-off, and it improves the public realm with landscaping visible from the community path above. As you can see, the parking on here is basically blocked by the building in the front and the wall in the back. And also the building is on top of the parking on that corner. It's a little hard to tell from this particular image, but I don't know if Jason, you can circle up. But part of the building is over part of the parking in the back. The project meets the requirements for a formula business special permit because it meets the goals again of summer vision and the HR district. And while Moxie is a formula business, there's only one other one in New England. It caters to the younger guests, as Chris just stated. And the area is full of formula businesses, including most of the stores across the street at Twin City Plaza and the other limited service hotels on McGrath-O'Brien corridor. The other three hotels have a very different mid-scale limited service 20th century model with, as Chris said, with standardized front desk reception, standardized menus, signage, and trademarked items. But Moxie is very different with the stylish, playful, affordable brand with an easygoing and friendly vibe. Moxie is intended to have a lively atmosphere with small but smart rooms and stylish communal space. And Moxie doesn't have uniforms or branding signage inside the building and is youth-oriented place to hang out, gather, and mingle. The hotel embraces the surrounding industrial style of the area. It's not a cookie-cutter brand-specific building, and it will be unique. While being a formula business, it will not look like one and will be different from those other hotels in the area. The existing non-residential vacancies are large in this area, especially the stalled lab building at 15 McGrath, which is a pit right now and will be, it looks like, for some time. The one McGrath site has been vacant. This site has been vacant for a very long time, and this proposal will activate that site and activate the neighborhood and the area overall. Somerbridge Hotel requests that the planning board grant the major revision of the previously approved site plan approval and the special permits for the hotel and the formula business use. Thank you. Jason, you want to take that off the screen?
So I'm going to ask you to bring that back up. I had another.
Oh, sorry.
Adam, you acted too quickly.
Well, last night the zoning board got mad because we didn't take it down fast enough. So.
Oh, well,
everyone's different.
I'm not them. You know that.
I know you're not them. No, you're good.
So three questions actually before I kind of open up to the public. Question one. When we last had, so I want to call you guys kind of like the plucky little hotel that can, right? We've now met with you several times, and so the last time, as I recall, and I think I saw it in one of the renderings, was the proposed hotel not split already between a potential Moxie and one other hotel? Am I mistaking that?
It was a Moxie and a different brand. It was a larger hotel. So it was a dual branded hotel at that time. Chris, do you remember? I forget what the other brand was.
Yes, it was an AC hotel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Also a brand that allowed for ownership interpretation of interiors and architecture for sure.
Yeah. So this is not the first time that we've kind of talked with you guys about having something that's a little bit more unique, which I appreciate. Question two, because you are not unique and because there is no form, I kind of liked, as you've seen through the various kinds of renderings that you had, the city line running through the building and the site. I have stayed at a hotel. I want to say that it was in Tennessee, where it straddled two city lines, and there was a design feature within the hotel that showed the inside the hotel and inside the rooms, the line between the two cities. So you knew that if you were in one of the rooms that straddled the two cities, there was like a design feature on the rug that said you're in, city A and city B. That would be really cool if you guys were able to do that here. Obviously, I'm not going to condition that, but it was just kind of a cool idea.
I think it sounds like a fun idea.
It was really neat because you get to walk through a lobby and say, okay, I'm in the city that it has the address for, and now I'm in this other community. It's just a fun little architectural feature.
And if it's in your guest room, you can go to sleep in Somerville and wake up in Cambridge or vice versa.
That could be somebody's nightmare, though, Chris.
Oh,
no. Question two. Question three, can you go back to that rendering of the building next door that is now not?
You mean the pool?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you, I'm gonna blow this up for myself here. Can you not market yourselves to now be next to like the reflecting pool as imagined by Washington, D.C. today?
Oh dear.
Probably the same quality level, right? But
Yeah,
no,
no kidding. No
I don't
kidding.
think we want to draw attention to that.
Now with extra algae.
I'm currently in DC. I can say it's not the same.
God. No, thank you all very much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. It was comprehensive. It's obviously a modification from what we've seen before, and I appreciate you working with kind of the constraints that you've had over the last couple of years that are, as you described, Adam, outside of your control. So
Last 9 years. We're hoping the fourth time's the charm, but between contamination and COVID and the zoning change in the lab building, it's just none of this is, by the way, Summer Bridge's hotels doing our fault. They keep getting approved and they keep getting stopped by matters beyond their control. But they're still,
like I said, the plucky little hotel that could.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So does anybody have any questions for the applicant team at this very moment at 8:41 p.m.? Because I'd like to open up to public testimony if we could. Okay. Carly.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question, Mr. Chair, about the separation between the entry and the exit with the 14-foot path is, and I think you mentioned there was going to be did you say there was going to be a retaining wall there? Or I'm wondering what that separation is, because the drop-off area moved and now there'll be a fair amount of traffic along that side. And do you know how the bike path separation will work with the traffic coming in and out, or is that TBD?
Mike?
So there is a defined separation between the path and the drop-off area. So the drop-off area is a dedicated 22 feet wide. There will be a sort of curb and a narrow grass strip, and then the ramp. The ramp will terminate at the sidewalk, so it'll be elevated in that regard to the sidewalk level, and then sort of gain elevation as it gets to the back of the property.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
I mean, the ramp is not at the ground level for very long. Then it kind of goes up.
I was going to say, Adam, as ramps do.
Ramps.
So what I'd like to do now is open up to public testimony for anybody that would like to speak in support of the application. Please exercise your raised hand button, and I'll call on you in the order in which I see you. As it is 8:43 p.m., I would ask you to please be cognizant of the time, as it is the Thursday before a long weekend, and we're all hungry. But please, anybody who wants to speak in support of the application, please raise your hand. Going once, Going twice. Seeing, oh, I see Lynn Weissman.
Hello, can you?
Lynn, yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. My name is Lynn, and I don't know if this is only in support of or not supportive. I don't know because you
I,
mentioned in
I
supportive.
will,
I
I
don't
will
know how
have,
this works.
I will have a time to speak in opposition, but
And
if that's where your position is, I would just
well,
say
I'm kind of on both sides, so I don't.
go for it
I'll
now.
just go for it. So I just wanted to say thank you. First of all. So it sounds like there's going to be a continuance of the hearing, which I think is a good thing. We have been working with this developer for many years, since pre-COVID, something like 7 or 8 years. They have been very generous about holding space for the ramp there. We call it a bicycle or pedestrian ramp, or if you want to call it a walkway, it's not just a bicycle ramp, much as the community path is just not a bike path. It's really a community space. And I just wanted to clarify some of the changes that have happened for the board's sake and for the public. And I have been also just very transparent with Chris about this. We have had very recent conversations. We both very much understand where we're all coming from. So I just wanted you to know that. So I wanted to just clarify that we really, really appreciate the donated land use for the ramp. What has changed since the land planning board decision is that before, the developer was planning to do the full design of the ramp, as well to fund and conduct the full design of the ramp, as well as to fund and execute the full execution of the ramp. At this point, because of the financial hardships, over these many years, the city is now recommending that there be a feasibility study and only a 25% design funded and done by the developer, at which point there is no later design funding or construction funding to build the ramp. And so at this point, there is no proponent taking on the funding for the full design and construction of the ramp. And we're really interested in the cities of Somerville coming together to create a real plan, or we risk having this ramp in limbo. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit. The staff memo.
Lynn, I would just ask, if you want we will be leaving the written comment open. I just want to make sure that the oral testimony is generally limited to 2 minutes per person, and I just don't want to get too far afield. If there's something that you'd like to address, kind of in a more fulsome way through a written comment.
Okay. I just want to say that, everybody wants the ramp, but right now there's no one to complete it. And that's a really important thing. We can talk about some of this. I will say it would be great if somehow the Somerville Reflecting Pool developer could be fined for the blighted condition of the property. I believe there was also some money for a contingency for that site not doing their transportation plan, but I don't have the documentation on that.
That site is not before us tonight. Trust me, there are levers and mechanisms that I would exercise if I had the opportunity. But unfortunately, this is not the board, and this is not the hearing to address that particular item.
Okay, and one of the issues of this ramp being on Cambridge land is that there's notes in the staff memo that says that a city solicitor needs to sign off on the public right-of-way easement and the deed restrictions. It's not clear, would that be the Somerville or Cambridge solicitor? So there's a lot of questions about city kind of responsibilities here and what's really possible and who can make this ramp happen. Right now, there's really no mechanism for this to happen. So I just sort of wanted to put that out there. I'm happy to explain more later, but I think this is a really important point. But I will also say that the developer has been great to
Let me
work.
stop you. Let me stop you. Let me
Thank
stop
you.
you. It has now been 5 minutes of your testimony, and I
Apologies.
appreciate that. And I would ask for you to supplement it with comments to planningboard@somervillema.gov. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person that I see is Rachel Burkhardt. If I could please ask Rachel to be unmuted.
Good evening. This is Rachel Burkhardt. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for listening to my comments here. I am a member with Lynn of the Friends of the Community Path and also a co-founder of the Friends of the Grand Junction Path. And while Attorney Dash correctly identified the ramp will connect to bike lanes on McGrath, in the bigger picture, I just wanted to present that they would also connect with plans that we have to connect across McGrath Highway through the Gold Star Mothers Park over to a basically a cycle track / sidewalk on Gore Street, which would then connect to the Grand Junction. So in the greater scheme of things here, this would connect two path systems in Cambridge and Somerville together. And it's a key thing, and we just don't want it to be the missing link when the time is gone. So we really appreciate the developer, and Chris has been incredible in terms of her patience, in working with the Friends and talking with Lynn about this. So they have a lot of goodwill. But as Lynn had mentioned there, our concern is, and we just asked the board if there's anything they can do to foster something that would make it so that the certainty of the ramp being eventually built becomes a reality. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel, very much. Anybody else that wants to speak in support of the application, please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I will close that portion of the public hearing and open up to anybody that wants to speak in opposition to the application or otherwise express concern thereto. Going once, going twice. I see Tori Antonio.
Hi, this is Tori Antonino, 65 Boston Street. I've been following this project off and on, and it's unfortunate that what we all wanted with the adjacent lab building and the parking underground, and that was not able to, that is falling through. I kind of also got tuned into this development because it's asking for a variance for surface parking. And I understand the constraints of building underground if you no longer have a partner with the lab building. And I want to say that we worked really hard to not have surface parking in our zoning. And in fact, have, mandated underground parking for certain overlay areas. And my beef about surface parking, aside from not being absorptive, even though they're filtering the water on site. They are really, really hot, and I don't want to start making exceptions to not having underground or surface parking. And one thing, I did write a comment, so you'll be able to read it, but one thing I've sort of noticed, and is that so many of these developments hit the green score, and it's like, good job, you hit the green score. But we're not getting the type of green we were hoping with the green score. So I just hope we're able to perhaps look at this summer, because we need a little bit more green space, especially in this area. I wish these developers, well, I've seen that you've stuck it out in the community. If you could, I would support this development if the developers would put a solar structure on top of the surface parking that's exposed. I would rally behind that because I do want the support of the connection with the community path, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tori, very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in opposition to the application or express concern? Okay. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I will close that portion of the public hearing, bring it back to members of the planning board. As I indicated earlier, we are not going to take a vote on this tonight. We're going to continue this agenda item until at least the 16th of July, which is what our next meeting is. But does anybody have anything they feel like they need to raise at 8:55 p.m. on a long weekend? Okay. Seeing none, the chair moves to continue this agenda item to July 16, seconded by Jahan. Please have a roll call.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael Magnelli,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Aye. This agenda item is continued. Thank you all very much. See you in a few weeks.
See you in a month. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, with no other business before the planning board, the chair moves to adjourn. Seconded by Jahan. Roll call.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Luke Schuster,
Aye.
Coralie Cooper,
Aye.
Michael Magnelli,
Aye.
Michael Capuano.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.